Okay. Okay, so tonight we wanted to speak about the importance of having a Jewish name and what does it mean to have a Jewish name. And how important it is to not just have a Jewish name, but to use the Jewish name. Because sometimes some people, they do, if you ask them, say, oh yes, I have a Jewish name, but they never use it. How important it is to use it every day. And that's what we'll try to explain tonight. The parasha of this week, it's all about names. And that's why we chose this theme to start our series of classes. The parasha is Shemot. And it's not just the parasha, it's the name of the whole book. But now it's interesting because every book is, the name of the book is about what we're saying, what we're talking about in that book. Bereshit means creation. Because what do we speak? We speak about creating the world, creating the man, beginning of civilization, right? It's all about creation, Bereshit. Shemot doesn't make any sense. Shemot means names. But the book is all about what? The Exodus. We were slaves, and then we came out of Egypt, and that's what happened to us, and we received the Torah. There's so many themes in this book. Why did we call him names? What does it even mean, names? Doesn't make any sense. And even more, when you start reading the parasha, it starts with, in a very weird way. It says, Ve'ele Shemot, and these are the names. But when you say and, you never start a chapter or a book with and. It doesn't make any sense. You're like, hello. You don't say and, hello. the and is extra here. We don't understand it, right? And what does it say? It says, Ve'ele Shemot, and these are the names. And it starts by giving us the names of all the Jewish people who arrived in Egypt and started living in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. Hi. So it starts giving all the names, one by one, all the Shvatim, the beautiful decorations that you have on the bima. It starts telling the name of the Shvatim. Why do we need that? And I'm going to ask even a bigger question. If we look at the parasha, the last one of last week, how we finished the book of Bereshit, we already said all the names. We already know that. So why do we repeat the names again and again? And obviously, you got the answer. It's because the Jewish name here is the main theme of what's happening in the book. It's because of their Jewish name that they were able to actually be liberated. Everything that has happened to them, and the fact that they were slaves in Egypt, and the fact that they were able to get out of enslavement, it's because they kept their Jewish name. And that's one of the first commentaries we have in this parasha. That the Jewish people kept three things when they were in Egypt. One of the three things is what? Their Jewish names. Because they started to forget about everything. And we understand that more than anyone. When you live in a society that has nothing to do with your religion, it's hard to stay connected. It's very simple. It is no one is judging anyone, but it's just life. You live in a society, no one is let's say, spiritual, or no one, and you come here with your ideas, or you go to the beach and you have a new bathing suit, you're the only one who's gonna wear a dress at the beach, right? I'm the only one. But if I know who I am, if I always remember my identity, who I am, then I have no problem. I remember my daughter was like, oh my God, Mom. And I was like, whatever, no, I know who I am, I have no problem. People can stare, it's okay. I also, Baruch Hashem, I have the chance of the bracha of having a child who has special needs, who has autism. And many times, I can tell you, people don't even realize how difficult sometimes it is or what's happening. Many times, I'm outside or in a store and he starts screaming like crazy. And everyone is going to look at you. So you have two choices. You can be so ashamed of yourself or whatever, or you can say whatever, People should understand. No one knows what it is really. I know what it is. I'm okay with it. It's okay. It screams, people look at me, I'm used to it. It's the same idea. Once I know what it is, and I have nothing to be ashamed of, I'm not going to be ashamed because I have a child with autism. This is my life. This is what Hashem gave me. I can handle it. It's hard, yes, but I can handle it. So once I know that, and I'm so strong with my belief, I'm not worried about how people are going to look at me. And that makes me like a strong person when I'm outside in these situations. In the same way, when the Jewish people, they kept their name, what does it really mean? It's a continuation of who came before them. And that's why we connect. Ve means we connect. We connect the previous parasha with this parasha. Because it's the same idea. It's the same parasha. It flows. You're not just having your Jewish name just because. It's because of your ancestors. And how we like introduce them, we call them not the first time, Bnei Israel. That's one of the first time that we introduced this idea of Bnei Israel. Why do we call them the sons of Israel? Because Israel, and it's very beautiful, Israel is actually all the names of the patriarchs, all the names of the Avot. Yud is Yitzchak and Yaakov. Shin is Sarah and the Shvatim, the tribes.
Yes.
Resh is Rachel. Aleph is Avraham. And Lamed is Leah. Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, is the son of all of these people. This is who you are. This is your identity. This is where you're coming from. And that's why the parasha starts like this, to remind you where you're coming from. Who are you? What is your identity? You're coming from a lineage, like of people. And you're like basically like, imagine you have a beautiful necklace. And it's just the necklace is connected. That's how it is. That you connect to each other and you pass this. You connect the past to the future. That's so powerful when you realize that. So the name is actually very powerful, you understand. It's not just a name, it's your identity. And the Midrash tells us that when we name our children, when it's time to name someone, we have to make sure that we name them based on someone righteous, someone a tzaddik, someone who is like a holy person. Why? Because the name you give, and that's what you were telling me, Yehudit, the name you give influences the child. Whatever behavior, whatever like destiny, this is going to influence the child. And when I say destiny, I mean it. For example, if Chaz Shalom, someone died of a traumatic death, okay, Shelo Neda, I don't know, someone drowned, okay? If people want to honor him after, they should not give just one name. They should give that name and add, for example, Chaim. You add something because the destiny of the person follows you. And that's why I know someone said the name was Rachel, right? Beautiful name. So Rachel is also one of the matriarchs who cried a lot. She cried a lot. She had a very sad life.
Who passed away very early on.
Yes, so I know like a family, like for example of a Rav in Sarcelles, France, and I was very great friends with her daughter, I'm still are, and she told me that, for example, her father said they cannot call in their family Rachel. They couldn't. Why? Because they said in this family they already had a Rachel, so they want that, or they had to change the name, Rachel something. So you see, people sometimes they're like stuck on a name or something by a family. Or some, I know, like, I don't know why, but in my family, for example, my dad told us in his family, they don't wear green. Maybe a Moroccan will be able to answer that.
We do.
No idea. No wear green. Of course, we all say,
green.
Papa, like, it's okay, now we change. We can wear green. But I remember there are things like that. Sometimes names, we cannot use that name. We don't do that. You know, it's very interesting. I was telling you about my brother, that something happened to him. He was named on my great-grandfather, and something happened to my great-grandfather. So after, it's like things, and ideas like this, that very careful how you name your children, because the name actually is connected to the person you're naming him, about. So very important. Something else is Rabbi Yehuda Chassid tells us that when a person does good deeds, when we do mitzvot, if someone is named after us, they will also carry our good deeds. So it goes in the negative way, but it's also very positive. That everything good that we do actually influences our name, and that goes to the person who will carry the name next. So I like to say, like Sarah, like my Noga can tell you, my husband was making this joke at the shul, and when the parasha of Sarah, he was saying that it's written in the parasha, Kol ma shetomar Sarah, tishma bekola. Whatever Sarah tells you, you listen to her. My husband knows that this one, it's like, Sarah is connected to me. I'm Sarah. You have to listen. Use it. Research who you are. Research your name and use it. It's always helpful. Because there are a lot of different Jewish names that we can use. We have the biblical names, Sarah, Abraham, Yitzchak. We have the Talmudic from the Talmud, the names. For example, Gamliel. I know some Gamliel. There's very like Elkanah. You have like very different names, from the Tanakh. You also have, for example, names from the animal, like the animal world, Ariel, a lion, right? You can have a name from nature. I remember I knew someone, Ilan, a tree. That's a very common name. That's from nature. So we have named that with the name of Hashem, Liel, for example. I'm just giving one name, but you can think about thousands of other names. You have the name of angels also, right? Michael, Gabriel, Raphael. So there are so many Jewish names that we can find and search, the origin of the name, and that name will influence our children. Like in the case I was telling you, my brother, we had to call him Raphael when he got sick to bring him refuah, to bring him healing. So the name really influences. How many times you hear someone is sick and they added Chaim, Chaya? There's a meaning for it. So very important to understand why you get the name and when to add the name. There's a beautiful idea that we explain. The name as a spiritual power. When you get a name, you get a special power within you. And when we add a name, when sometimes we need to add a name, it's because you need an extra power. So if someone is very sick, the name is connected to the soul, to the neshama. So it means the neshama at that moment needs healing. So when you add a name, the neshama changes. It's not the same destiny anymore. So you give the neshama more power, more spiritual power, more strength. So by calling the person Raphael, for example, you gave him the healing power. By calling them Chaya, you gave him the life power. So it's very important. I have a friend that comes to our French classes, for my French, and she couldn't get married, and she was trying for years and years. And finally, she chose to change her name. So I remember we spoke about which name. She asked Korav. She chose a different name. We called my father, and he went to the Torah the next day, and he named her. And since then, she got married. She got 3 kids. Caro can confirm. And the name really changed a destiny, like Baruch Hashem. Some people, sometimes, we don't know why, but changing a name or adding a name sometimes could be positive and could help the person in their lives. Because at that moment, they get extra kochot, extra powers, spiritual powers, of course.
Could it be the other way around also?
You cannot remove a name.
No, but like if you change the name, it would
Bring something negative?
Yeah.
If the name is bad, maybe. It's very important what name. They say that usually we don't change people's names or we don't add names to people if there's no need. But one area when you would do it, if someone has a negative name. If someone, let's say, has a name that is very sad and the person they name after is always sad, then you will change that name. But yes, it works the other way. So I just want you to realize that changing names, adding names, it's not something new. Look at Avraham and Sarah. Avraham was Avraham and he became Avraham. Sarai became Sarah. Mm-hmm. We see that already in the Torah. We already have the secret.
Yaakov Israel.
Yaakov became Israel, and Sarah, she couldn't have children. Once Sarai couldn't have children, when she became Sarah, she became pregnant.
True.
At 90 years old. It was a record. So you see that it could help. It could change. A name can change the person's fate. The person's fate and destiny also. There's once a woman who came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and she was infertile. She couldn't have children. She was trying for years. So she went and she cried to the Rebbe. She said, please, I need a blessing. I don't want to live until you give me children. So he asked, what's your name for the blessing? And she told him, I'm Dvorah Leah. So the Rebbe looked at her and he said, you need to convert and then you will have children.
Convert.
She called them home when she left. She was like, what's going on? And she discovered that actually she was adopted and she was never converted, so she was not even Jewish. The Rebbe saw that name and the soul he had in front of him didn't match. So in order for her to bring this blessing, she had to actually convert and match the name with the soul. There's another story. I love that story when I read it. The story is about this person who did not believe in anything like metaphysical or spiritual or rabbis. Forget it. Even though Yom Kippur, it was too much for him. So once his family, they went to Senate, like to New York, and it was a big trip, and someone told him, you have to go see the Lubavitcher Rebbe, get a blessing. I don't believe in that. What do you want? Just come with us. We're all going already. We're the group. Come with us. Back in the days, the Rebbe would actually have people come in his office and talk to them, right? So they all come in, and the secretary blocks him and says, wait, they all wrote letters. You should write a letter to the Rebbe. He's like, I don't need, I don't care, I don't believe. He said, write a letter, what do you lose? So he took a piece of paper, and he wrote on the piece of paper, why is it so important? Details for God. Why is God so like into details, right? Always do this mitzvah that way, and don't eat this, and don't do that. Why so many details? So he wrote that. So the Rebbe takes all the letters when they all come in, and he takes his pencil, and he takes his letter and keeps tapping with his letter. And then he looks at everyone and he says, okay, I see everyone has two names. And he turns to him and says, what about you? I only see one name. So I only have one name. The Rebbe says, two names. What is your other name? I only have one name. He leaves the Rebbe's office almost like laughing, like, what was that? He calls his mother and he's like, do you see that what I just experienced? And he tells her the story. She's like, oh my God, when we had your Brit Milah, we gave you two names, not one. And she gives him the second name that he had. He didn't even know about it.
Wow.
No one even called him. So why can a tzaddik see that? Because a tzaddik connects with your soul, and your name connects with your soul. So if your name is not in accordance with your neshama, or you don't behave the way you're supposed, it doesn't work. It's very important to know your name. There's this story they tell about Moshe Dayan. You know, this amazing warrior for Israel? Moshe, in the years 56, 57, Moshe Dayan got hurt in one of the wars in Israel. So in the Rebbe's, they had in 770, they had like a big party, they were doing a Farbringen, and one person said, Rebbe, bless Moshe Dayan, may I have a Pua Shlema? So the Rebbe said, sure, give me his name. So the person, I don't know his name, like, many times we hear, pray for this, pray for him, pray for her. What's the name? So the guy was like, I don't know his name. And then a Rebbe looked at him and said, you know what? Moshe Dubinsky, this Moshe, his mother has the same name as Moshe Dayan's mother. Go ask him. And they got the name wrong. Again, it's not because it's what's exceptional, it's because the name is connected. And it has a divine power. The name is Hashem. When you say the Jewish name, when you call someone by the Jewish name, you actually say the name of Hashem. You're going to tell me, where do you get that from? Bereshit. We say that Hashem created the world. How did he create the world? With words. Ba'asara ma'amarot nivra olam. Hashem created the world with 10 utterances. With words. And Hashem said, and there will be light. Boom, light. It's all words. So the Kabbalah explains something powerful. The Zohar explains this. That when Hashem created the world, at that moment he created the 22 letters of the alphabet, of the alphabet. And every time we use them, we create also. We have a power of creation. The same way that the words created the world, the same way we can create things. So when you say a Jewish name and you use the Jewish letters of the alphabet, you're actually using Hashem's power. So you give the person more power. I remember when Rabbi Sitruk, which is a huge French rabbi, Rabbi Shalom, I worked for him. He was a tzaddik.
Oh my God.
So he had a stroke at some point in his life at Briut. He had a stroke, and at that moment he was in the hospital, and the French president went to visit him. It was a big deal. Imagine Biden visiting the chief rabbi, it was huge. Chirac, he went to visit him back in the day. And when he went to visit him, he told him, are you okay?
You have any water?
Someone has water?
Can I get you some water?
It's okay. She's fine. Okay. Just me.
Do you know the definition of the names?
Some of them, yeah.
So Devorah Leah,
Devorah Leah, what a powerful name.
that's mine.
Wow. You know you're named also based on the Rabbanit, Devorah Leah. She was such a power.
I know.
She's the one who changed, she actually gave up her life for her father. She was such a powerhouse. We said that she was even more learned than the Hasidim, than all the students of her father. She was such. You love studying?
Yes.
You see?
I do.
Yes, every name has its power. So in that.
Yes.
So we see that the name here is something that is divine. So every time you call someone by their Jewish name, you give that person at that moment an extra power. So back in that story, when he came to visit Rabbi Sitruk, as we call him, Rabbi Sitruk told him that every time a person comes to visit someone sick, they actually take the pain, part of the pain, with them. So they help to heal the person. But also if you say the name of the person, that's why when you say the healing for someone who is sick, what do we say at the end? The name of the person and the name of their mother. Why? Because we want to give, by saying their names, we give them koach, we give them power. We change the reality. We recreate the reality. We create a new reality. Because the name is a conduit for the neshama. It's a conduit, it's a way for us to connect to Hashem. So very interestingly, very often people who don't have Jewish name, they ask, what name should I get? So I was watching, when I was preparing the class, I stumbled upon a video of the Rebbe and it says names. I was like, what? I have to watch that, I'm giving a class about it. And it was people walking like in front of the Rebbe and asking him for names. So one person walked and he says, I don't have a Jewish name, can you help me choose a Jewish name? So the Rebbe said, what's your name? He says, Donald. And the Rebbe said, okay, so your name should be Dan or David. Okay, another one comes, same story, you don't have a name. What's your name? Robert. He said, so your name, and that was interesting, I never heard that concept. Your name should, your Hebrew name should start with the same sound. So Resh, Robert,
Reuben,
so maybe Reuven.
Reuben,
Yeah, he told him Reuven. Then another one came and told him, I'm having a Brit Milah today. The guy was like in his 20s or 30s. He said, I'm having a Brit Milah today because I never had a Brit Milah and I'm changing my name because at the Brit Milah, that's when we give the name. We say, by the way, just so you know, that the soul of the child only fully enters the body when he has the name at the Brit Milah. And same for a girl. Until you name a girl at the Torah, that's when the soul enters the babies. So until then, it's not a full soul. You don't have like you have an 80% baby. It's not like a complete baby. So that's very interesting. So this person came to the Rebbe again, and yes, I'm having a Brit Milah today. He said, what's your name? He says, Jordan. So the Rebbe said, you should call yourself Yarden. It's funny because we always think, and then woman, it was the term for woman, and one was Marianne, and he said, of course, you should be called Miriam. That wasn't obvious. And the other one was Stephanie, and the Rebbe told her, the same as he said to Robert, start with the same sound, S, and it should be connected to Sarah. Okay. So that's why you should be called. So there is no, as you can see, there's no rules. Like when people, they're looking for what name should they call themselves if they don't have a Jewish name, and the Rebbe was giving like advice. But it's interesting to see that sometimes it's the same sounds, kind of, like Miriam, that was an easy one. But Yarden, Jordan, that's also very similar, I find. Mm-hmm. Or find a name that's up with the same letter. Or in some cases, if someone needs more joy, Simcha, you add joy. The name will actually reflect who you want to be, you know? And it's very interesting because I know, for example, Esther. I have a sister who's Esther. And she's very quiet, very secretive, you know? It's like
yes,
the name is the name. Really, or like you're saying to Voralia, you know, we found something about Voralia. Because the name really reflects your soul, reflects who you are, your neshama. It's not something just because there's a full meaning behind it. And what is very interesting is that once we start connecting the names, you feel that you start connecting people and you start connecting to Hashem better. I don't know if you know that story, but I had to tell you that story tonight. I heard it from Rav Yoel Gold. You can Google it and hear it from the real people. You can watch it yourself. It's this couple that just had a baby. They lived in Florida. Just had a baby. And they couldn't find the name for the baby. It happens. You know, sometimes the baby is born and you're like, what do we call him? And the husband says something and the woman says, I don't like it. And then she says something and he doesn't like it. And everyone is like, they cannot agree on the name of the baby. So we know it's a prophecy, it's a Ruach HaKodesh, but sometimes it's hard, you know, to find the prophecy, you don't know. So they were getting closer to the Brit Milah, and the woman's like going crazy, what are we going to call this baby? So she calls her dad, and she says, Dad, help me, what do I call the baby? I don't know, I have no name. So the dad says, this is a very personal decision, this is you and your husband who have to decide. But you have to look at your baby the morning of the Brit Milah, and the name is going to come to you as a prophecy. You'll see Ruach HaKodesh, you'll know the name. But if you don't, or if you still stumble like you're difficult, I have an idea. My grandfather was such a huge tzaddik, and no one ever named after him. So if you want, you can call him like my grandfather, David Chai. So the wife said okay, the daughter said okay, Papa, thank you so much. And then the morning of the Brit Milah, Sunday morning arrives, and Veikare Baem Shemi, how do you call the kid? Netanel Yaakov. I just came to them. Netanel Yaakov. Whoa, everyone Mazal Tov, they have the meal, everything. She comes home after the Brit Milah, nurses the baby, her mom calls her. Tell me, we're so touched, we didn't know why you did this name. I said, what do you mean? She said, someone called me and they were so impressed by you because on Friday there was a terrorist attack in Israel and 2 people died, Netanel and Yaakov, and that's what you call the children. They were so touched that you actually thought about these terrorist attacks and these victims and you named your child after them. So the daughter said, Mom, I'm so sorry. I mean, this is beautiful, but I didn't even know there was a terrorist attack. I didn't even know.
I saw that story.
She didn't know.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So she's like, I didn't know. Netanel was 18 years old. Yaakov was 44 years old. One was the dad, one was the son. And disgusting. And that's a very nice terrorist killed them. And they didn't even know. They called their son these 2 names. Look how Jewish people are connected. So that Shabbat, they received the Ami magazine in their home. And the wife reads the Ami magazine finally Sunday morning. She has time to read it. And her husband comes back from shul. And she's like crying, so emotional. So he thinks it's the hormones of the just give birth. She's like, you're not going to believe it. Come. And she says, look at the newspaper. There's a whole article about the 2 victims of the terrorist attack of Friday, of Netanel and Yaakov. Do you know what their names were? He said, no. Netanel was Netanel Chai, and Yaakov was Yaakov David.
Oh, wow.
David Chai. The grandfather was still close and sending a message. So they called the family, they connected, and that gave a lot of nechama, a lot of comfort, you know, to this family, to know that the name keeps on, you know. So we don't realize, but our names connect us, not just our identity as one person. It's what we explain with this Israel, it connects us from, you know, the generation that come before us to who we are today. It's so powerful, the name that we have. And also, how many times you've seen that? I know it happens a lot in my house. I call my son, I'm like, Levi, Levi, Levi. Doesn't answer. Levi Yitzhak Peretz! And actually, what? Yes, because sometimes when you call the full name of a person, you get their full attention. It's true. When you want someone's attention, what do? Call their name. I remember it was crazy because every class, I mean, I'm Sarah. You have a Sarah, so she must know. Every class, I mean, there was always 4 or 5 Sarah. It was such an unoriginal name. Like everyone was Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. So every time Sarah, you like answer for them. But you are the only unique Sarah, and the other one is the only unique Sarah. You're not the same Sarah. And it's interesting because we can all have the same, I mean, not all of us, but some of us can have the same name, but we don't carry it the same. Because we are not named upon the same person. Maybe one is going to name about Sarah Imenu, one is going to name about Sarah Tzadeket, one is going to name about Grandma Sarah. We don't know. But we have that name and that power from the person that we carry the name from. And sometimes we create our own power. Someone is going to carry our name. That's why, for example, I know Sfaradim people, they name usually, a lot of Sfaradim, not everyone, but they name from people who are alive. It's like a big honor to give the father-in-law's name to the firstborn, right? Or others will tell you, no, don't do that. Like Ashkenazim, usually they don't do that. It's not respectful. Chazé Shalom, it's when someone passes away, that's when you give a name. So it's very personal. There's no rules. There's no halacha, you know. Besides respecting, not calling your name as the same as your father. There's no, in the Jewish religion, there's no like Avraham 1, Avraham the 2nd, Avraham the 3rd. That's the only rule. I think we can agree on.
Junior,
yeah. It doesn't work. Never heard that. But a name is that connected. There is this story of this chassid who learned a really horrible business news, that he lost all of his fortune. He lost all of his money. and he fainted. It was just too much for him to handle. He fainted. Every time he would open his eyes and remember what happened,
He
fainted again. And he was about to die because they didn't know what to do. He kept fainting and fainting. The doctor said, we don't know what to do anymore. So they went to see the Rebbe of the time, of the town. They said, the Rebbe, you got to help us with this. Chassid was your student. What are we going to do? He said, go to his ear and call him by his full Jewish name. They did that and he woke up. What happened? They saw it's because they connected to his neshama. So it's not about what's out in the world, the money, the power, the honors. It's about connecting to you. And you, essence, you always have it. You always carry it with you, whether you have money or not. And that gave the person the strength to actually stop like these fainting episodes and be able to, you know, go back, exactly, to go back to life. There's also this story, this beautiful story on Chabad.org. You can read it. It's a story of this, and it happened many times, unfortunately. Where I live, I'm from Grenoble, which is the southeast of France. We had a lot of Holocaust survivors because we're surrounded by mountains, le Vercors, and a lot of like all the resistance and the fighters, they were actually hiding around us. We have crazy stories about people hiding in the mountains around us. And many, many stories. Yeah. And one of the... Your grandfather was
hiding next
in the Vercors?
Yeah.
Wow.
All my family, yes.
Wow.
The brother was
hidden in there. So you see, there were a lot of them. It's like crazy how many Jewish people were saved, thank God, in that region.
And they're going to Spain to bring the kids, the Jewish kids, to
exactly, because we're not too far. And then you could go also to Geneva, to Switzerland. They could save the kids. So there was a lot of stories. And one of the stories, I don't know if it happened exactly in that city or more like in Germany or Hungary, but this couple, they knew the Nazis were arriving and they had to save their kids. And many Jewish families did that. They took their kids and they brought their kids to like either like the nuns or to the fathers or to another non-Jewish family. And they would give the kid to the non-Jewish family and they would say, please, we give you money, we give you our jewelry, we give you everything. Take care of the kids and we'll come back after the war, after we like out of hiding, and we get the kid back. So that family did that. They took their little girl and they put it in his family and they begged the family to please hold it. They gave money, they gave jewelry, and they went and they were hiding like somewhere like in like under the house or whatever. After the war, they were able, Baruch Hashem, to survive. They came out. They wanted their little daughters. That's the first thing they did. They ran to the village. And they arrive and they see their daughter. And they're like, their heart is full. Their daughter is alive. They can finally be a family again. But when they come close, the fake mother comes, takes the daughter and says, don't touch her. She's my daughter. And she stays with us. And the mom is like, no, she's my daughter. Give her back. But they wouldn't give her back. And there's many fights like this. Like I know a lot of people who actually, they made that as like their life, to go in the like everywhere and to try to save the kids and to bring the kids back to family. But a lot of the kids actually were lost. A lot of kids were not returned, unfortunately. So the parents, they try everything, and the girl doesn't even recognize her parents. So the mom says, you see, she doesn't even know you, she doesn't know who you are. So go away and we keep her. And the parents are crying and crying and they try, little daughter, come, please, it's mommy, it's daddy, you don't remember. But the girl is completely lost. And the fake mom is about to take the girl away. And at that moment, the mother remembers something. She looks at her daughter and she says, Estherke, Estherke. And the daughter turns and says, Mom, the only way she remembered who she was by calling her with a Jewish name. The Jewish name is the one that connects you. It's the one that is deep inside of you. And we see that. The Jewish name is the one that will help you reflect who is your essence, who is your identity, who are you really? How do you actually make your name proud? How do you connect to your name? And that's the story we need to ask ourselves, especially today. We're in a world of anti-Semitism, like I think in our generation, we've never experienced, at least me, I've never experienced that bad. It's the first time in my life. Or maybe I was younger and I was oblivious to it, but to me, I don't know about everyone's experience, it's the first time I feel so much anti-Semitism. And the way to actually answer it is to feel even more Jewish. When I use my name, when I use my Jewish name, I actually show all the anti-Semites, like all the horrible people, that this is who I am. This is me. This is my identity. It's never going to change. I'm like Shterna Sarah. I'm going to insist on my Jewish name, so you know exactly who I am. It's like I feel that we need today to fight darkness with light. And the only way to have light is to actually bring our light of being Jewish even more into the world. Our pride.
Absolutely.
You know, like I was looking at this, someone sent me Michael Rappaport, this actor, who is not very observant, right? I don't think he does anything, or I don't know, but he doesn't seem very observant. He's not even with a Jewish person. I think he I don't know if he's married or whatever, but he's with But when they started being anti-Semitic, like he started like fighting and going, and someone sent me like rants, and he made like talk shows and whatever. He was out there with pride, because this is who you are. And his name is the name of what we said before, Angel, Michael. It's such a beautiful name. So this is our essence. This is who we are. And Hashem sends the name and the prophecy to the parents because there's a message. You don't call your son Michael just because he needs to be a Michael. You have to understand why this name came to you. This is another story, and I will end with that. It's another story, a story, also Rabbi Yoel Gold. He has one story a week. It's always an amazing story. I love his stories. It's like inspiring stories. And many of you maybe have heard that story, but if not, we need to say it. The story happened back in 2008. There was in Israel, unfortunately, Hamas, who was like sending missiles, like to Israel all the time. So they had to fight them back. They had to go in to Gaza and try to find where it's starting, and just kill it before they keep killing us. So it was called the operation. I don't know if you remember Castly. You remember that operation, 2008? So they basically had to go into Gaza, take all the troops. And there is this mother who had to send her son. He was in the army. So he spent the Shabbat with her before he had to go, and everyone was called up. And she knew there was a war. She knew they were about to enter Gaza. So she told her son, she had just lost her husband, just like a year or so ago. Not long ago, like within the past 2 years, she had just lost her husband. So she was like a widow. She was already suffering and having pain from that. And now her son has to go to the army. She said, I need to know where you are at all times. If you go into Gaza, please tell me. But he told her, and it's true, you're not allowed to say it. If you're in the army, you're not allowed to say where you're going or what you're doing or where you're located, because they can actually look at your conversation. So she begged him and said, please, I need to know. I cannot have you go and not know where you are. I need to know. I need to be in peace. I need to pray. I need to be with you. So he told her, okay, let's have a code. If I'm called and I have to go into Gaza, I'll send you a message. And in the message, I'll write to you, Eshmor al atzmi. I'll be careful with myself. I'll take care of myself. So she says, okay. So she goes, and he goes to the army. That Motzei Shabbat, she hears in the news that they're going in Gaza. 2 minutes later, she gets a phone, and on the phone, she gets a text from her son. To my mom, the one I love the most in the world, I'm gonna watch upon myself. You also watch upon yourselves. So she understands, that's it. Her son goes to Gaza. So she starts crying and praying, and then she has the TV on, and then they knock at the door. A few hours later, who is the first casualty? Her son. Dvir Emanuelov was the first casualty of that war, and they came to announce it to her. She is heartbroken. She lost her husband, but losing her son, she's so upset with God. She doesn't want to have anything to do with God. She doesn't want to pray anymore. She doesn't want to talk to anyone anymore. She just doesn't want to live anymore. She lost the taste for life. And she's so pissed at everything. And people try to come, a daughter. No, she doesn't want to see anyone. She doesn't want to get out of the house. She goes to the cemetery when they bury him because she has no choice. But she doesn't even say amen to the blessing. She is beyond. She's like upset. And years pass by, and a year passed by, and it's the time of the Yahrzeit. And she goes to the cemetery and she cries her heart out to her husband, to her son. And then she comes home and she's so pissed. She still has this anger, you know? And she starts screaming at God. She's like, what have you done to me? Why? I don't believe in you. You want me to believe in you? Give me a sign. Give me a sign. So I understand the craziness of the world. Give me a sign. And then her daughter calls her and she says, Mom, it's finished that you stay home always. Like, tonight, I am taking you to a concert. She's like, I don't want to go. I'm not going. She said, Mom, whatever you say. Be ready. Tonight, I'm coming, picking you up. Meir Banai, we go to Meir Banai concert. That's it. I'm not giving you a choice. So she comes, the daughter, she takes her mom. They arrive. There's like 8,000 people. Everyone is sitting, like, you know, in Israel, they go to Gan, they're all sitting. It's all dark. Everyone is sitting. And the mother is really not well, you know, like she went through so much emotionally. And then suddenly someone is like bothering her, tapping on her shoulder. So she turns around and she sees a little boy. And he's like, hey, hey. So she turns around and she doesn't know. And then she hears the parents, Dvir, don't bother her. Come back, Dvir. And she's like,
Oh my God.
what's the name of your son? And they say, his name is Dvir. So she's like, wow, it's the name of her son. So she says to them, can you please tell me, I don't even know why I'm asking you, but why did you call him Dvir?
Yeah.
They said, it's very interesting that you're asking us a question because we've never told anyone. But when my wife was 8 months pregnant, she went to the doctor and they saw a huge problem with the baby. They told us that the baby will need dialysis when he was born. He's going to have problem with some of his organs. Very dire prognostic. My wife came home and started crying and crying. And at that moment, at the TV, they were talking about the soldier, the first casualty of the war, Dvir, Emmanuelov. And we said, you know what, God, if you save our son, if you make him healthy, we will call him Dvir. So this soldier always lives in our hearts.
Wow.
The mom was like, she said, okay, she got a sign. She realized that you're always connected, always. There's not like a way that you give a name to a child and Hashem didn't put the name at that moment because he knew that the mom needed that nechama, she needed the comfort, and this kid will give her that comfort. So this is what we wanted to do tonight. When you give a name, remember, we're each unique with our names. We each come because we're connected from what's before us, and because we have to transmit it, to give it to our children, to the next generation. And even people who don't have children, they can give money to school, to the yeshiva. They can always perpetuate and continue this like beautiful thing that we have, that is the Jewish people. So thank you so much.